Part 9. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jinkui. Chapter 81. Moreover, Fukin also has one of the biggest advantages. Fukin is the distribution center of medicinal materials in the entire Great Chu dynasty. It is the wholesale market of medicinal materials in later generations. Her family's pharmacy also lacks some medicines that are not commonly used. These have to be replenished. It is also convenient to go to the pharmacy in Fukin to replenish. When the medicine is sold, she can also make some proprietary Chinese medicines by herself. For example, donkey glue, antler glue, huaxiangxiang, wuji beifeng pills, angong niuhuang pills, etc. These Chinese patent medicines have been tested by the market, and the effect is very good. And her family's ancestral zigzuyudan can be made. The more Gu Yunjiao thought about it, the more excited she became. But on second thought, she couldn't just leave the Chen family and go to Fukin by herself. Since he had promised the Chen family for 3 years, his words must be counted. After thinking about it, Gu Yunjiao made up her mind. Now Zhang Yu's legs are not in good shape, and they are not suitable for moving. After 3 or 4 months, his legs have recovered. No matter what, she will persuade Chen to go to Fukin together. After opening the door, Gu Yunjiao went to Chen's house. Chen she embroidered under the window of the house. She hasn't done it for a long time. She has some hands-on skills. She plans to embroider something first, so that she can pick up this skill. Gu Yunjiao went in and looked at it for a while, then asked, "Mother, did Zhao Lijian go to the Yamen to change our household stickers?" Chen Shi shook his head, "Not yet. The population of each family changes, those who get married, and those who split up, will have to wait until the end of the year before they will be handed over to the Yamen, and the Yamen will re-register before issuing new household stickers." Gu Yunjiao thought about it, that is to say, although her current household registration has been transferred to the Zhang family's side, she has not yet registered with the Yamen. Is this household post only available at the end of the year? Chen Shi answered her while embroidering, "That's not true, but if you want to do it in advance, you have to spend money." Gu Yunjiao whispered, "Mother, I have an idea. Can I come out on my own?" Chen Shi was shocked. The embroidery needle stabbed into her finger, she put her finger in her mouth and sucked. "Well, it's not impossible for you to have a single household, you are also considered a widow, and a widowed woman can be a single household." She looked at Gu Yunjiao with a complicated expression. She also knew that Gu Yunjiao was capable, and sooner or later this family would not be able to keep her, but she didn't expect this day to come so quickly. She thought about it. If Gu Yunjiao wanted to leave, she wouldn't force her to stay, lest she become an enemy because of it. Chen Shi said sourly, "If you want to establish an independent household as soon as possible, Niang Er will go to Zhao Lijian tomorrow to do it, but it will cost an extra coin or two." Gu Yunjiao laughed when she saw that Chen Shi's expression was a little wrong. "Are you worried that I'm leaving?" "Don't worry, mother. Since I promised you for 3 years, I will definitely not leave now. However, I want to feel at ease when I hold the household sticker in my hand as soon as possible." She has a modern consciousness and thinks that the household sticker is an ID card, and the ID card must be held in her own hands to be assured. Then Gu Yunjiao said again, "Also, if Saburo's legs are healed in a few months, he still has to study. I think it's better to divide our household stickers earlier. There are still several months until the new year." Chen Shi blinked and suddenly understood. When Saburo's legs are healed, he can continue to study, and the old man will definitely regret it. "What do you regret? Will you find Zhao Lijian and take back the separation documents? Heng Zhuang hasn't registered in the Yamen yet, so if he doesn't take it back, he will take it back. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth." Author, Jinkui. Chapter 82. Thinking about it this way, Mrs. Chen was a little panicked. That's not going to work. She doesn't want to be with them anymore. There will be no peace in the noise. How comfortable these days are. Like Yunjiao said, is it the days that people lived in the past? She narrowed her eyes. You reminded me, I will take Zhao Lijian to the county town tomorrow. Even if I spend some money, I must quickly post the household. She looked at Gu Yunjiao. Don't worry, my mother will give you a separate household. Gu Yunjiao smiled. Thank you mother then. Oh, by the way, I have to go to Dakok Saburo quickly. After that, he hurried out. Chen Shi looked at Gu Yunjiao's back and felt a little sour in her heart. She was reluctant to think that such a good girl would leave her one day. The next day, Mrs. Chen went to look for Zhao Lijian early in the morning, and then went into the city together in Lu Er's car. It's gone for almost a day. In the evening, when Gu Yunjiao was cooking in the kitchen, Mrs. Chen came in from outside. Mrs. Chen took out 2 household stickers from her arms and put them under her eyelids. It's all done. Our family is separated, and we have a separate account for you. Gu Yunjiao smiled. Thank you, mother. Chen Shi glanced at the fragrant dried meat in the pot, and saw many snails in a wooden basin on the ground. Where did the snail come from? Gu Yunjiao smiled and said, Lu Lang took Xiao Chuan and Sanya to pick it up. I thought I would keep it for a few days and eat it after the mud was spit out. Snails generally have parasites, but after a long period of high temperature cooking, the parasites and eggs can be killed. Gu Yunjiao told Lu Lang not to touch the snails in the future, because she was afraid that several children would be infected with parasites in the water. The next day, Gu Yunjiao sent Sanya to Osmantha's house and asked her to tell Osman thus that she would buy 2 buns tomorrow, and if she had pork liver, she could also buy some. Sanya came back from a trip and said to Gu Yunjiao, Sister-in-law, Atai is looking at our house from behind the tree outside. Is he looking for you? Gu Yunjiao patted her head. By the way, today should be the 6th day, I'll take a look. She lifted her foot and walked out, Sanya tugging at the corner of her clothes behind her. Sister-in-law, you really go, he smells so bad. Gu Yunjiao smiled. He was ill, and he won't stink when he gets better. When she went out, she saw Atai under the tree. Atai showed half of his face from behind the tree, with a shy smile on his face. Gu Yunjiao walked over, and Atai couldn't wait to say, Little Dr. Gu, I think I'm all right. I used that medicine for 3 days, and the pus stopped. I touched it before applying the medicine last night, and scabs started to form on my head. Gu Yunjiao smiled. Really, look down at me. Atai lowered her head, and Gu Yunjiao took a look. Sure enough, the redness, swelling, and erosion had disappeared, and the pus had begun to scab over. Then she took a deep breath. Atai's face changed greatly when he saw her action. Gu Yunjiao laughed. Don't worry, the smell is gone. Atai was still in disbelief. It really doesn't stink anymore. At this time, Aunt Chin came out of her house and just heard what the 2 of them said. She stopped and stared at Atai for a while. What's wrong? The sore on Atai's head has really been cured. With tears in his eyes, Atai nodded vigorously. Okay, it's really good, it's all scabbed. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jin Kui. Chapter 83. Aunt Chin got closer, her nose twitched. Oh, it really doesn't stink anymore. This is so good. She clapped her hands vigorously. It's amazing, it's amazing. Dr. Xiaogu is really amazing. I've seen so many diseases that doctors don't like, and they have been cured by you. Aunt Chin emphasized again, your father wasn't optimistic about his illness back then. She patted her head. I remember that Atai took the medicine for a long time at that time, and the scum was poured on the road every day for people to step on, isn't it Atai? Atai nodded vigorously. After taking the medicine for half a month and applying the medicine again, there is no pus anymore. It didn't scab, it turned into a hard lump, and after half a year, it started to ooze pus again. I think it's really good this time. Aunt Jean smiled at Atai. It's good. Otherwise, with this sore, you can't even find your daughter-in-law. Aunt Jean suddenly slapped her thigh. Oh, what am I talking to you about? I still have something to do. After speaking, she left in a hurry. Guyunjiao smiled at Atai. It's good, you don't need to use that medicine from now on. Pay attention to hygiene in the future, try to eat less hot things as much as possible for your constitution. Chili, pepper, don't take it. Ginger, onion and garlic should also be eaten less. And don't eat mutton and dog. Atai nodded. I remember. After Guyunjiao was about to leave, Atai suddenly knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Guyunjiao. Although this disease was not a serious one, it really caused him great pain. In the past few years, he seldom spoke to people, and when he saw people, he avoided them far away. He thought that he could only live like a ghost in his life. He even wanted to die several times, and when he died, he could see his mother, only the mother would never dislike him. But he met the second person who didn't despise him, Dr. Gu. She also used medicines that cost no money to cure his illness, so that he could live like a normal person. It could be said that he gave him a new life. He really wanted to be a bull and a horse to repay her. It's just that he can't even get the medical fee, and he doesn't know what else he can do except kowtow. Zhao Lijian and Aunt Sun didn't know where to come back, and when they passed by, Aunt Sun was taken aback. What's the matter? It's bright and sunny, what are you doing kowtow? Guyunjiao hurriedly turned sideways to avoid. Don't knock, the ground is dirty, you can go back and live a good life when you're sick. Atai got up from the ground and ran quickly. Aunt Sun recalled, you really cured the sore on his head. Guyunjiao nodded and entered the courtyard. Aunt Sun was speechless outside. A few days ago, this girl gave Atai's pulse. I also said, this girl is a nonsense, but I didn't expect it to be cured. Zhao Lijian narrowed his eyes. What kind of girl is not a girl? Speak with respect, I heard people call him Dr. Gu. Aunt Sun glanced at her husband, wanted to say something, and closed her mouth again. Forget it, she already knew that her man was a shrewd man, otherwise, he wouldn't be here. Zhao Lijian had already figured it out in his heart. Guyunjiao had found out the happy pulse of Zhang Dalan's daughter-in-law before, and used the hearth's oil to cure the sweet-scented Osman thus. This has cured Atai again, and it is impossible to explain it by mistake. This is enough to prove that she is really superb in medicine. As long as there is no problem with the brain, a person will not think about offending a doctor, especially a doctor with superb medical skills, who knows that one day he will be waiting for someone to save his life. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jinkui. Chapter 84. Zhao Lijian immediately set his tone. In the future, he must respect Dr. Gu and help him as much as he can. By the way, my family still has a unique relationship. The future little daughter-in-law and Dr. Gu are sisters. Okay, great. Guyunjiao ran into Mrs. Yang as soon as she entered the yard. Mrs. Yang glanced at her and shouted at the window, Sister-in-law, the old man asked you to come over, I have something to tell you. There was a sense of schadenfreude in her tone. Chen Shi put down the needle and thread in his hand, went out and glanced at Yang Shi lightly, and entered the main room of the upper room. Mr. Zhang was sitting above, smoking a dry cigarette. Seeing Mr. Chen come in, he pointed to the chair next to him, sit. Chen Shi sat down and listened to the old man. It is said that the family is separated, and there are some things I shouldn't care about, but this is still Lao Jiang's family, so I have to talk about it. What's the matter with the brother of Dalan's daughter-in-law, Xiao Chuan? How did I hear that he will live in our house in the future? Chen Shi lowered his head. Well, his mother went to Fukan to find his father, his eldest sister is about to get married, and there is no one at home, so he can only live here temporarily. Old man Zhang frowned, then he can't live in his married sister's house. It's a shame, doesn't he have an uncle? Chen Shi still lowered his head. I left him here. Mr. Zhang exhaled a puff of smoke. You will let him go back in a while. He belongs to the Gu family, and he is in charge of the Gu family. What's going on in the Zhang family? Chen Shi sneered in his heart, but his face was extremely respectful. Father, it's not that I don't listen to you, it's true, now the family lives on Yun Xiao. The old man Zhang stared. Nonsense, didn't the division give you food, and you still have 15 taels of silver? Is it possible that the success is gone? Chen Shi said indifferently, the 15 taels of silver will be returned to An Sun's 50 taels the next day. A few days ago, Yun Jiao went to the city to pick up medicine for Saburo. She paid the pharmacy more than 3 taels of silver, and there was only about 6 taels of silver left, which was not enough for the medicine. The food that is used at home now also includes Saburo's medicine, which is all Yun Jiao's money. In the future, when Saburo wants to take medicine, he will still point at Yun Jiao. Dad, tell me, can I drive Xiao Chuan out? Mr. Zhang was silent for a while. Where did she get the money? Chen Shi straightened her back. She went to the county town to meet a rich man, and he was cured. They thanked her and gave her a lot of money. Mr. Zhang was stunned. She really knows how to see a doctor. Chen Shi nodded. Really, the medical skills are pretty good. Then, Ms. Chen tried her best to adjust her expression, trying to make herself look pitiful. Father, please, let Xiao Chuan stay for the time being. Now that the whole family points to Yun Jiao to survive, you can be kind. Chen's words are all on this point. If Mr. Zhang insists on chasing Xiao Chuan away, he will not give the family a way to survive. The old man sighed helplessly, then stay. Chen's heart was secretly delighted, and just as she was about to go out, she heard the old man say, even if she has money, she can't stand it. I heard that you eat meat every day now. Chen Shi made a helpless look. I said the same thing, but Yun Jiao didn't listen. She said that she was weak and had to grow, so she couldn't do it without eating meat. I thought, Saburo, Rokuro and Sanya can also take a bite, so it's not good to stop them too much. The old man couldn't say anything else. He waved his hand. Go. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jinkui. Chapter 85. When Mr. Chen was gone, the old man began to ponder. Is this division wrong? Even if Saburo can't be an official, Dalin's wife can make money. If they hadn't been separated, wouldn't the whole family be able to eat meat along with them now? That girl probably still has a lot of money left in her hand. Mr. Zhang felt a little remorse. He sighed, and went back to the house with the cigarette stick. Just after lunch, Gu Yunjiao was reading a medical book under the window when she heard someone in the yard shout, "Is Dr. Gu at home?" Gu Yunjiao got up, walked to the door, and saw a woman looking at her with a smile. Gu Yunjiao nodded at her. Is something wrong with me? The woman said carelessly, I heard that you don't need money for medical treatment. I've had a headache in the past 2 days, you can show me. She heard from Aunt Chin that Dr. Gu had a good heart and healed the sore on Atai's head. Seeing that he was pitiful, he didn't ask for his money, and he didn't know what medicine he was using. Atai's stepmother is a powerful person, and everyone knew that it was impossible for her to give money to treat Atai. Hearing Aunt Chin's words, the woman was moved and came to the door. Gu Yunjiao laughed angrily. No matter Osman thus or Atai, she doesn't want money because she sees how pitiful others are. I didn't expect this kind of person to come here on purpose to take advantage. It was as if he was not here to see a doctor, but to receive free eggs. She said lightly, who said I don't need money for medical treatment. 20 texts for a pulse diagnosis. If you want to prescribe a prescription, it costs 1 coin. If auntie wants to see a doctor, please pay the money first. The woman froze for a moment, then spat fiercely to the side. What the hell? Who is looking for you to read 20 when? I don't know how to go to the town to find Dr. Su. They only charge 10 when. Gu Yunjiao smiled lightly, then go to Dr. Su. At this time, Mrs. Chen came out of the house and scolded the woman. Ma Dejiao, you are shameless, and you are taking advantage of my house. Hurry up and leave, or I will drive people away with a broom. Ma Dejiao is a little afraid of Chen's. She fought with Chen's once before. She was torn off 2 locks of hair by Chen's, but Chen's was intact. She spat on the ground and left. Chen Shi pulled Gu Yunjiao into the room. Who are these people? In the future, even people in the village will have to collect money to see a doctor. Like Osman thus, it's okay to know what's good or bad. She's just a big-footed person. She doesn't think it's enough to take advantage of it. Gu Yunjiao nodded. Well, not anymore. At this moment, Mrs. Yang shouted to Gu Yunjiao at the door of the West Wing, you said just now that you only need 20 cents to see a doctor? Why did you charge me a tael of silver last time? Gu Yunjiao threw a word, bone, or 2, then she went back to the house. Mrs. Yang was still muttering something black at the door. Mrs. Chen glared at her, and Mrs. Yang went in cursing. Not long after Gu Yunjiao picked up the book, Aunt Chin rushed into the yard and shouted at her open window, little Dr. Gu, take a look, Atai is making trouble with his father and stepmother. Gu Yunjiao came out of the room and opened her eyes wide, they are making trouble with them, what am I going to do? Aunt Chin patted her thigh, look at me, I didn't say everything. Atai told his father that he would sell himself, be a slave to you, and be a cow and a horse for your whole life to repay your kindness. If you don't, it will start a riot. Hearing this, Mrs. Chen also put down the needle and came out of the room. What's wrong with this kid Atai? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jin Kui. Chapter 86. Aunt Chin looked at her, you don't know yet? Dr. Gu cured Atai's illness. Chen Shi said in surprise, I really don't know. At this time, Mr. Zhang and Mrs. Zhou also heard the movement in the yard clearly in the upper room, and Mr. Jiang's brows twitched again. Atai's sore, but a stubborn disease, has been cured. Dalin's wife's medical skills are really extraordinary. A strong feeling of regret was stuck in the old man's chest. He had already started to settle accounts in his mind. If Gu Yunjiao could make a prescription a day, she would have 3 taels of silver a month. That year, at least I had 36 taels of silver. If you are lucky enough to meet a rich customer, you will earn more money. Outside, Mrs. Chen pulled Gu Yunjiao, let's go, let's take a look. Gu Yunjiao went out with Chen Shi and Aunt Chin. Mrs. Yang and Mrs. Lu were originally doing needlework in the yard, but now they looked at each other and both put down their needles and went out together. Along the way, I met a lot of people, all of whom heard that Atai's house was in trouble and went to see the fun. Nowadays, in the slack farming season, each and every one of them is probably too idle at home, and watching the fun is like rushing to the market. Atai's house was not far away. When he got to the front, he saw a lot of people standing outside the courtyard and inside the courtyard. Seeing Gu Yunjiao coming over, someone shouted, little Dr. Gu is here. The crowd gave way in an instant, and Gu Yunjiao noticed that many people looked at her with awe. When he walked into the yard, he saw Atai kneeling on the ground, and a woman with high cheekbones was pointing at him and scolding him. A middle-aged man next to him lowered his head and said nothing. The woman spit all over, "You unconscionable seed, it is so easy to raise you so big that you can contribute to the family at a glance. You are good, you would rather be a slave to others than contribute to the family. Bah, if I had known that today, I shouldn't have given you a grain of rice, you would be pulled down by starvation." At this moment, Atai looked back at Gu Yunjiao, her face flushed red. The woman followed his gaze and looked at Gu Yunjiao, then snorted coldly, "What? Are you here for money?" Gu Yunjiao was confused, "I want money? What kind of money do I want?" The woman rolled her eyes, "What are you doing without money?" "This little bastard asked his father for money, saying that you cured his disease, and you will pay for the diagnosis. If you don't pay the doctor's fee, he will sell it to you." Just as Gu Yunjiao was about to say that she didn't want his medical fees, she suddenly shut up again. It was only after being disgusted by Ma Defu that she couldn't say this in public. Otherwise, more people will come to see a doctor for free. If she doesn't show it, it will attract resentment. Gu Yunjiao glanced at Atai helplessly, and could only purse her lips. Seeing that Gu Yunjiao was silent, the woman thought she was acquiescing, and scolded Atai more and more, "I want money, but I don't have a cent. I really don't know where you have the face to ask for money." At this moment, Atai on the ground suddenly raised his head, looked around, and then said, "Which uncle and aunt will do me well? Please call Zhao Lijhan, I have something to say." An idle man replied, I'll run fast." The woman was still scolding, "What can you call Zhao Lijhan to come? Can he give you money? Or can he press the old lady to give money?" Aunt Chin said loudly, "Dagon's family, don't say a few words, it is only right and proper to give money to see a doctor." The woman said, "Bah, who let her see it? Who begged her to cure Atai or something? She has to meddle in her own business, who's to blame? The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth." Author, Jinkui. Chapter 87. When Chen Shi heard this, she blamed Gu Yunjiao, she rolled up her sleeves and went up, spit on the woman's face, "Black-hearted stepmother. Atai is cured, not to mention others, our neighbors are all happy, you're better, you don't have any money, and you're going to be beaten. Our family Yunjiao still treats people, isn't it?" Chen's saliva was spat on the woman's face, she reached out and wiped it off, rolled up her sleeves, and looked like she was going to fight with Chen's. She raised two thick eyebrows, and looked at her with her hands on her hips. When it comes to fighting, she has never been afraid of anyone in the whole village. At this time, someone laughed and shouted, "Dagon's family, you should forget it, you are not the opponent of Sister Chen. She has never lost a fight in our village." The woman was cowardly and turned her face away, "Forget it, I'm too lazy to care about you." After a while, Zhao Lijhan was called over. Aunt Sun and her two daughters-in-law also came to watch the fun. Atai knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Zhao Lijhan. Zhao Lijhan hurriedly said, "You child, speak up when you have something to say." Atai still knelt on the ground and kowtowed all around, mothers and aunts, everyone knows what my Atai was like in the past. Since I got this disease, I have seen many doctors, and I have taken many medicines. I know my body stinks, and I avoid people when I walk, for fear of smoking everyone. Everyone nodded, and someone said, "That's right, Atai is an interesting kid." Atai continued, "Later, my mother left, and my father married his stepmother. As soon as the stepmother entered the door, I was kicked out. From this time on, my father remembered me and gave me a bowl of rice. If I forgot, I might not be able to see a grain of rice in 3 or 5 days. If it wasn't for the monks in the temple on the mountain taking pity on me and giving me a bite to eat, I would have starved to death." When everyone heard this, there was a lot of discussion, and Atai's father lowered his head. "It was Dr. Gu who saw me as pitiful, and cured me, and I came back to life. I don't stink anymore. In the future, I also want to live like a person. I will ask everyone to be a witness today, and I will also ask Zhao Lijhan to help write a document. I will sell myself to Drgu. I don't want money. In this life, I will be a cow and a horse for Drgu to repay her kindness. Gu Yunjiao's heart trembled when she heard this. Healing Atai's bad sore was just an easy thing for her to do. She didn't expect this child to be so grateful. Just as she was about to refuse, she suddenly narrowed her eyes again. Atai's stepmother, with a mean face, is not a good person at first glance. Besides, she gave birth to a son again. Gu Yunjiao looked at the 2-year-old child next to the woman. Atai had recovered from her illness, and she still wouldn't have a good life in this family. She is now planning to go to Fukan to open a pharmacy when Zhang Yuzi's legs are healed. It takes a buddy to open a pharmacy. The pharmacy staff is different from other shops, they have to be literate and know the medicine. I heard that Atai's mother is just such a child, and she takes him very seriously. She also studied for 2 years, so literacy is not a problem. It just happens to be a buddy to cultivate. If Atai follows her to be a pharmacy assistant, if nothing else, he will have no worries about food and clothing for the rest of his life. When he grows up, he will be able to marry him. Thinking of this, Gu Yunjiao was silent. The more she looked at Atai, the more satisfied she felt. Atai, a child, knew how to be grateful. She could use such a person with confidence. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jinkui. Chapter 88. Zhao Lijhan was a little embarrassed and looked at Lu Dagan. This, if you want to sell yourself, you have to get your father's consent. What does your father mean? Before Lu Dagan spoke, his mother-in-law said loudly, it's okay to sell it, you can only eat and work every day, I can't wait. She pointed at Atai and said to Gu Yunjiao, bring 5 taels of silver and I will sell this child to you. Zhao Lijhan immediately scolded, you woman, you are so ignorant, even your parents, brothers and sisters, you can't buy and sell people at will. You know that forcing the good to be the cheap one is going to go to prison. Atai was originally a good member, but if he really wanted to sell himself as a slave, he would become a low-ranking member, and his descendants would not be able to take the imperial examinations. After Zhao Lijhan scolded him, he turned his head and saw that Gu Yunjiao was silent. He thought to himself, could it be that Drgu really wants to buy Atai as his servant? Seeing the pity in Gu Yunjiao's eyes, Zhao Lijhan felt that he understood. Dr. Gu has a good heart, thinking that he feels that Atai has no way to survive in the hands of his stepmother, so he wants to give him a way to survive. He then changed his words, however, if he sells himself, he is no different. He looked at Lu Dagan, Dagan, what do you mean? Lu Dagan was speechless. The Dagan family said again, how can there be such a thing? Atai is 12 years old this year, and raising such a large family costs a lot of money. Even if he sells himself, he must first report the kindness of his parents. When people think about it, this is not bad. Seeing that everyone in the Dagan family seemed to agree, they said more and more confidently, I don't want much, just 5 taels, 5 taels of silver, Drgu, you will take this child away. Just as Gu Yunjiao was about to answer, there were boos from all around. Someone said, you want money to die, and marrying a daughter-in-law is only 2 or 3 taels of silver. How can this half-sized boy be worth so much? That's right, you haven't paid for the consultation yet? If you're cured, you must give some money. This disease is so intractable, no matter how many doctors I have seen. Yeah, buy this half-sized boy back, eat a lot, and it's useless, who wants to buy it? 5 taels of silver is too expensive, it doesn't make sense. Seeing that everyone was accusing her, the woman said embarrassingly, then, let's make it 3 taels of silver. Gu Yunjiao stepped forward at this time, sure, I'll give you 3 taels of silver, and Atai will follow me later. The woman's face was filled with joy. She never thought that this leprosy stepson could get money in exchange. She used to curse Atai to die early every day at home. When Atai died, she could save food, and a few acres of land in the family would belong to her son in the future. Of course, selling is better. Atai on the ground was about to cry. He wanted to repay Dr. Gu. How could he still pay for her? He shook his head again and again. No, I don't want money. Gu Yunjiao stepped forward and pulled him up. Although your stepmother is not a good person, there is something that makes sense. Anyway, it's your father who raised you so big, you still have to give the money you should give. She looked at Lu Dagon. However, I said it before. After I gave the money and set up a letter, this child has nothing to do with your Lu family. Don't run over every 3 days and ask him to go back to work, or ask him for money. Lu Dagon was still hesitating, and he could see that he didn't want to sell children at all. His mother-in-law stabbed him fiercely with her elbow. What else are you thinking about? Isn't this child abandoned a long time ago? It's not a loss to exchange 3 taels of silver now. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jinkui. Chapter 89. Lu Dagon finally raised his head and glanced at Atai. His eyes were extremely complicated. He also really loved this child. He has been such an only child for more than 10 years. He has been taught to study since he was a child, hoping that he will be successful in the future. Even if Atai has an incurable disease, he does not dislike him. But the mother-in-law who married later disliked the smell of the child and drove him out, but there was nothing he could do. Later, the mother-in-law gave birth to a son again, and his heart gradually shifted to the younger son. Sometimes I can't even remember that I have an eldest son outside. Forget it, sell it. If he is at home, he will have to spend money to marry him in the future. Lu Dagon finally nodded, yes. Gu Yunjiao smiled at Zhao Lijian, then trouble you to write a document. She beckoned to Rokuro, who was crowded to watch the fun. Go home and bring pen, ink, and paper. Rokuro ran away in a hurry. At this time, Mrs. Yang raised her voice and said, I said, Dalin's daughter-in-law, do you really dare to spend 3 taels of silver to buy someone back? Our parents have specified that we cannot agree. Gu Yunjiao just glanced at her and said nothing. Chen Shiakimbo, what dare you? Our big room has been divided. Besides, Yunjiao has the money herself, and she doesn't spend it on anyone else. Many people in the village didn't know that the big house of the Zhang family was separated, and there was a lot of discussion for a while, asking why the family was separated. Chen Shi listened to the speculations of the people around her without saying anything. Anyway, she is living a comfortable life now, let them think. Rokuro quickly came over in a basket with a pen, ink, paper, and inkstone. This kid is really smart. He put the pen and paper in place and started to help sharpen the ink. Zhao Lijian wrote the document, read it in front of everyone, and then explained, since this person is sold, it will be irrelevant in the future. Everyone here is witnessing today. If something happens, everyone will not obey. The melon eaters responded, yes, we don't follow. Gu Yunjiao took out 3 taels of silver and gave it to Lu Dagon. Then she gave Zhao Lijian another tael of silver. I'm going to trouble you to help me get a red contract at the Yamen. It's not urgent, just do it a year ago. It's almost October now, and Zhang Yuzi's legs have to be raised for a few months, and it's almost the end of the year. If you want to go to Fukan, you have to go after the new year. So don't rush. Zhao Lijian took the money with a smile. Then I will keep this deed for you first, and I will give it to you when the deed is changed. Gu Yunjiao gave him a blessing. It's hard work, uncle. Zhao Lijian waved his hand. What's the point of working so hard? Speaking of which, we are still relatives, isn't that alright, ha ha ha. When Zhao Li was leaving, Gu Yunjiao glanced at Atai. Let's go home. Atai was stunned for a moment, looked back at his father, knelt on the ground, kowtowed 3 times to his father, then got up and followed Gu Yunjiao. Lu Lang carried the basket, and Gu Chuan and Sanya followed behind Lu Lang. Chen was at the back. Mrs. Yang came over and smiled gloatingly. Tisk tisk tisk, you have another mouth to eat in your family, and there are still people who can't work without food. Let me see how you live. Chen Shi rolled her eyes, didn't bother to pay attention to her, and walked away quickly. Gu Yunjiao walked all the way and asked Atai, are you literate? Atai nodded, I can read. When I didn't have this disease before, I went to school for 2 years. Gu Yunjiao nodded and said nothing. A group of people walked to the door of the house. Liaolang Sanya Xiao Chuan went in, but Atai stood outside the door, hesitating. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jin Kui. Chapter 90. Gu Yunjiao looked at him. Why don't you go in? Atai tugged at his tattered clothes. I'll be a servant in the future, I won't enter the house, I will be outside. Chen Shi just heard the sentence in the room. She shook her head. This child, alas, has a solid eye. She pulled Atai into the room, looked him up and down. Your clothes, it was too bad to be a rag. She was embarrassed to say the latter. Chen Shi shook his head. Wait, I'll find a set of Saburo's old clothes for you to wear. She went to Zhang Yu's house to rummage for a while, and found a piece of old clothes that Zhang Yuzi had worn a few years ago, a set of blue short brown, with 2 patches, and the edges were washed. She handed the clothes to Atai and pointed to the kitchen. Draw water and take a shower. After taking a shower, put on your clothes. The one on your body should be thrown away. Atai nodded and went to the kitchen. Chen Shi came in and discussed with Gu Yunjiao, this Atai, where can I tell him to sleep? Now Rokuro and Ogawa are sleeping in the main room, and there is really no place for more people to stay. Gu Yunjiao thought for a while. Today I'll make do with one night, I'll go to the county town tomorrow and talk about it. She had an idea in her mind. She wanted to send Atai to the Wang family pharmacy to follow along for a while, learning to recognize and concoct medicinal materials. However, she also knew that the current rule, to go to the pharmacy as an apprentice, is to pay the master money. Paying money is not the key, and people are willing to accept you as an apprentice. She sent someone as an apprentice in the past, but the master will not use this apprentice in the future. It seems a little unkind, and it is not in line with the way of master and apprentice today. I don't know if shopkeeper Wang will agree. If shopkeeper Wang agrees, then Atai will live in the county for the time being, so it doesn't matter. If you don't agree, you'll have to make another plan. Just thinking about it, I suddenly heard the scolding from the Zhou family outside. Little prostitute, lost her head, how dare you buy someone back? Don't pee and take care of yourself, are you worthy of the servants to serve you? The prodigal's thing, holding my mother's money. Shut up, a loud shout interrupted Zhou's words. Gu Yunjiao raised her eyebrows in the room and looked at Sanya. She knew that Mr. Zhou was scolding her, but it was strange that the old man would stop Mr. Zhou from scolding others today. Then Zhou's voice rang again, why, I can't say it yet. If I don't say it again, this little prostitute will destroy the big house. How can I say that Lu Lang is also my grandson? When she loses all her money, Lu Lang has nothing to eat or drink, so why don't you want me to take care of it? Stop talking, the old man shouted again. Then there was absolutely no sound from outside. Gu Yunjiao probed to look, and saw Lu Lang tiptoed to the bottom of the window of the upper room. At this time, Kilang's head from the west wing also stuck out, and he shouted, Grandma, Liaolang is listening to the wall outside your room. Rokuro turned his head and glared at him, like a rabbit, and ran away quickly. Joshi's face quickly appeared in the window, scolded little bastard fiercely, and then closed the window heavily. Guyunjiao covered her mouth and smiled secretly. In the upper room, Mr. Zhang began to educate the Zhou family. Don't scold Dalin's daughter-in-law in the future. You didn't listen to the second daughter-in-law just now. She even healed the sore on Atai's head. Joshi was not convinced. What's the matter? She treated her, why can't I say anything about her?